Okay, let's continue. Short, simple games thus far today. 1850, ladies and gentlemen, that's our first 1800. Let's go. Let's hope he doesn't abort. Because we're too low rated. Okay, so a Karo-Kann. Now, there's many lines that I recommend in the Karo-Kann, but let's play a very simple system, if we will, which is e takes d5, the exchange Karo-Kann. And it's very important in this position. I taught this to Charlie, to go bishop d3 to stop his bishop from coming out to f5. Now we're going to go c3 to build a pawn chain. And here, we need to develop the knight from g1. Knight f3 is actually inaccurate. Can somebody tell me why? Why is knight f3 a little bit inaccurate? What does it allow black to do very conveniently? It allows black to go bishop g4. So instead we're going to go knight e2. And the idea is that bishop g4 is no longer a very... Yeah, he goes bishop g4. But now we can actually get rid of the pin by going queen to b3. You guys might be thinking, well, wait a second, why couldn't you do the same thing with the knight on f3? Well, if you kind of visualize this, and I'll show this after the game, if knight f3, bishop g4, queen b3, he can actually take the knight potentially and ruin the pawn structure on the king side, which is quite bad because we're probably going to castle to the king side. Okay? Here, we can just continue developing. We've unpinned ourselves. Bishop defends the knight. Now, he wants to get his bishop to d6. What should we do about that? What should we do about that? Bishop f4. Simple. He can actually still go bishop d6. That's theory. But let's see if he knows this. This is... Okay, no. Knight d2. Let's develop the knight. And he's probably going to castle. And now let's tickle him. Always a good idea. And now we need to improve... Thank you, SQI, for the prep. We need to improve our pieces. Now, if we take a look at our knights, right, you guys see how these knights are, they're a little bit passive. So first of all, we can take this knight and put it on g3. And now that he's castled, by taking on g6, we make a weakness in his pawn structure. If he wasn't castled, the rook was on h8, I'd be reluctant to do that because the rook would have access to that h-file. But here, that h-file is completely innocuous. Let's improve the other knight, knight f3. Simple. Very simple, straightforward chess. Let's see what he does. Absolutely. Well, let's think about where we want to position our rooks. Now, rook ae1 would be a little bit mean to the other rook. That other rook would end up on f1, and it would be a little bit bad. So let's go rook fe1. Now, I don't know where I'm going to put this other rook yet, but at least I give myself greater freedom. Okay, he attacks our queen. We're going to move it. And now we need to come up with a plan. Now, if you guys remember, we took on g6, which made him take with a pawn. I introduced a concept to you guys in the 2 games ago called a hook. A hook is when there is a pawn next to the king that is not on its initial square. And we can use a hook in one of 2 ways. We can sacrifice a piece on it, or we can use our pawns to sort of hook into that hook and make further weaknesses on our opponent's king side. Bingo! Now, we're not going to go h5 yet. That's going to be a blunder. How are we going to set up the move h5? Think about it this way, right? After h5, he's probably going to take. That's going to open a direct line toward his king. So we want to go knight g5, because after that happens, we want to be poised to deliver potential checkmate on h7. We'll have to distract the knight from f6, but we can do that actually by sacking it on h5. Okay? By the way, we should also be already considering sacrifices like rook takes e6, although all of that is quite dubious. Okay. Order of operations. Order of operations. Our bishop is hanging. Let's take it. And what are we ready to do after he takes? What are we ready to do after he takes? Push. Yeah. Now, queen f4 would be a very strong move here. Let's see if he finds it. I saw it, don't worry. And I have a really strong response to it in mind. But I think it's the only way for him to get a feasible position. Otherwise, he could get checkmated. Now, if g takes h5, can somebody remind me of the move? Is queen h7 there? Is that checkmate? And if not, then how do we make sure that it will be checkmate? A very simple deflection. Of course, it's not mate because the knight guards the square, but we can deflect the knight. Good job, guys. Knight takes h5, and he finds it. Now, it's okay. He's attacking the knight, which means that if he takes the pawn, he takes our knight. But we immediately need to ask ourselves the next question. Can we move this knight away with tempo? We don't need to panic. We don't need to sack. We need to ask ourselves whether we can move this knight away with tempo. Can we move the knight away with tempo? We can. After the game, I will explain why sacrifices are bad in this position. Now, here's the thing. And this is the reason he's in trouble. Because he has to move his queen, but look at the pawn on f7. Do you guys see that that pawn is overloaded? It has to defend both e6 and now it has to defend g6. So black is going to lose a pawn. It's actually not that simple, but basically that's what's going to happen. Now you'll see why it's not that simple if he correctly takes with the queen. But you got to be flexible, right? We wanted to attack. He defended against the attack, but in defending against the attack, he created other weaknesses which we're exploiting. This is what flexibility is. You got to be able to stop on a dime and completely change your strategy at any moment based on what your opponent does. You can't have that one-track mind. Oh, well, I wanted to attack. Okay, what should we do? I kind of gave away the move. Should we just take the rook and give him the e-file? Is that something that we usually do? No. Rook a1. We keep control of the e-file. Knight f4 would blunder the knight, my friend. Remember, there is a queen on h6. So knight f4 would allow queen takes f4. But also knight f4 would not be good because he could even take on e6 and then we wouldn't have control of the e-file. Okay, let's unpack this move. He's attacking our rook. Now, option 1 would be to trade on e8 twice. That would be fine because we're up a pawn. But I don't really want to do that, you know. I want to keep control of the e-file. How can we do that? How can we control... Yeah, queen e2, Malcolm, on fire. Now, believe it or not, this allows a very interesting tactic, but let's see what he does. Now, how should we go about thinking about this position? Well, this knight on h3. Do you guys see any prospects for this knight, potentially? Where can this knight potentially end up? So where do we want this knight? And you guys are already telling me the correct idea, which is that the knight wants to go to g5. And we need to prepare that by playing f4. We cannot go knight g5 because that would blunder the knight. Okay. But first, let's take on e4. I'm not blundering rook takes c6 because why? Why is rook takes c6 not just winning a rook? Because knight g5 check. What should we do now? What should we do now, guys? Knight g5, of course. That's our plan. Now, if he takes with the knight, then we can take the knight back, but we can immediately take the rook on e8 and win the game. So he has to move his king back. Now, after he moves his king to g8, which he will, we have to be very careful and find the accurate move. Because if we take his knight, then we drop our rook on e6, okay, and we can't do that. So what we'll need to do, and rook takes e8 gives up the e-file, which I don't want. So we need to find a way to do two things. We need to get our queen away from this pin, and preferably we need to defend the rook on e6 so that we can play knight takes e4. We need to prepare this move, in other words. Queen a6 is possible, but why? Why so complicated? We can simply... Yazazi, good job. Queen g4, and that's it. His position collapses. The game is over. He's lost. Exactly. Simple chess. Queen g4. We're threatening knight takes c4. He's going to end up 2 pawns down. He could get smothered mated here. It's crushing. Absolutely crushing. And there's 1700. Yeah, rook e8, queen b5 would also be good. So, okay. Now, bishop d3, I'll skip the opening because it was quite simple. Again, knight f3 here allows bishop g4. And this pin is a little bit scarier than this pin. First of all, we can play f3 should the occasion arise. But also we can simply unpin ourselves with queen b3. And we don't need to worry about this because we can simply take back. Now, bishop f4, knight e2. By the way, why can he go bishop d6? Doesn't this blunder a pawn? Could somebody tell me? Doesn't this? Yes, I beat Andrew. Rook b8, of course. And rook takes b2, restoring material equality and cutting into white's pawn structure. But he played bishop e7. Key question, what happens if I do it anyway? Ask yourself the Sam Shankland question. If your opponent prevents an idea, you should spend at least 10-15 seconds asking yourself, what happens if I do it anyway? Because that can unlock your brain, and it can sort of help you eat into those assumptions you make, which prevent you from finding certain moves. Improving the knight, improving the rook, and then asking ourselves, okay, what defects in black's position can we take advantage of? And we notice that he's got a deficient king side. What does that mean? Specifically, he's got a hook on g6. How do we use a hook? We use it with our pawn by advancing it first here. Then we prepare h5 with knight g5. And then the key moment was here. This was the critical moment in the whole game. Now, what I want you guys to understand is that an attack, and I've talked about this before, is a function of two things. A successful attack depends on two things being true. Number one is the fact, number one are the presence of pieces. An attack can't happen unless there's a certain amount of firepower, of horsepower, literally and figuratively, involved in the attack. Number two, weaknesses in your opponent's king side, or the area where your opponent's king is. If neither of those things are true, then an attack has very little chance of succeeding. So if you think of a graph, right? Okay, so let's go to Microsoft Paint. Let's go to Microsoft Paint. It's time to make another painting. And, okay, x-axis and y-axis. And we're going to draw a sort of an asymptotic graph. Sorry. We don't want the fill here. We want red. And we want a brush. No, we don't want a pencil, though. I want a thick brush. You want a thick brush. There we go. So this graph is successful attacks. Successful attack. Very, very neat handwriting too. Successful attack. I swear I have good handwriting. Now on the x-axis here is the, sorry, on the y-axis, Jesus, are, oh my God, this is embarrassing. I'm like, he drew a half pipe, yeah, exactly. F of x equals kappa, yeah, it's fine. Is number of pieces. And on this axis is weaknesses. So what this shows is that, and let's call this let's do this in terms of like evaluation, like 8, whatever, 6, 4, 2, 0. I don't even, this doesn't make any sense at all. But what I'm trying to show is that you have two main defining factors in an attack, number of pieces and the amount of weak squares. So a single queen can conduct a successful attack if your opponent's king is basically, naked. But you could also have a situation where you have 5 pieces in the attack, but your opponent's king is super well defended, the attack fails. You guys see what I'm saying? I suppose you could say there is, an attack is the function of 2 variables. I guess you need some calculus here. Number of pieces and weaknesses. Anyways, guys, sorry. Back to the speedrun. So why is a move like knight takes f7 bound to fail? Because if we consider our function here that we drew, we have 1 piece in the attack, only 1. Does black have any real weaknesses on his king side? Like, are there any specific targets that you guys can identify here? I know, but I want to entertain you guys. Queen protects h6. Not really. No targets. And black has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in the defense. So you can rule this out without any calculation. Minimal calculation, you can rule this stuff out. That's what I'm trying to show. Okay? H takes G6, rook E7, and again, the rook protects E6. I know, I'm kidding. So while this is an admirable attempt, that's why I was so dismissive about it. Now, queen takes G6 would have been better, because after queen takes G6, F takes G6. Guys, back to the chess, please. Can somebody explain to me why rook takes C6 doesn't just win a pawn for free? Because B2 hangs. Question 2. Should we therefore play B3? Is B3 a good idea? No. Why not? Because it leaves C3 super weak. And so black can counterattack that pawn. What should we do? How should we go about defending B2? While making a move that is also conducive to our long-term pressure on the E6 pawn, we should go rook E2, double rooks, and involve this knight via G5. Now the fact of the matter is black can protect this pawn, but not for long, because once we put a knight on G5, this pawn is going to be indefensible. So that's what we would have done, and black is still in very big trouble in this endgame. So in my opinion, after knight H3, black is much worse. Let's check our accuracy, shall we? I'm just curious to see what our accuracy was in this game. I think we actually played a nice game. 94, yeah, pretty solid. So, you know, this isn't BS. I'm playing my full strength here. Any questions? Not much longer. I'm running out of gas. I did play a 250 game match earlier against Andrew. His primary mistake was, well, first of all, bishop e7 is inaccurate. Second of all, I think that, like somewhere here, I think he should have gone knight takes d6. And like, I don't know, maybe like takes and knight e4 defends. I'm not sure actually. But at this point, like we were already applying some pressure. So he made a series of very small inaccuracies that kind of accumulated. Would it have been better for him to not trade his dark square bishop? Yeah, probably he could have kept it. He probably could have kept it. But already at this point, he's in some trouble. Why didn't we go knight e5 before he went knight c4? Because our queen is hanging. So I suppose we technically can do this. But why trade so many pieces when we're eventually trying to attack his king, right? Okay. Barring any further questions, let's play one or two more and call it a night. Okay. Well, we've got 2,500 viewers, which is awesome. If you could give this player one tip to improve, what would it be? Well, I would basically say, yeah, so study a little bit of this Karo-Kann theory. But, yeah, anyways. So I won the match, guys, by a score of approximately 110 to 90. The funny thing is he's higher rated than me now, but I'll get back to 3,500. Okay, let's continue. Rakesh Tyagi, let's go e4 as we usually do. And he goes with a modern, which is g6. We simply develop our pieces and occupy the center. And what move... I am tired, but this is just my passion. So what move should we play here with white? 26 bucks by Flying Chef. Thank you so much, man. Should we go bishop e3? Yes, we should. Now, we can go f4. That's the Austrian attack. But let's play bishop e3. Why are we playing bishop e3? Because we are, remember, when we have control of the center, we want to develop our pieces in such a way that we actually lend some support to the center. You guys already know what the move is here. We've played it many times before. Thank you so much, man. What should we do? We should not play queen d2 immediately. The problem with queen d2 immediately is that he has the nasty little move knight to g4. And so we should go f3 in order to prevent the move knight g4 and prepare queen d3. Obviously, we are going to be castling long, which is the reason why f3 is acceptable. What is the purpose of queen d2? There are two reasons we prepare castling. But there is a secondary reason, and that secondary reason we can literally just play on the board right now. Well, we can start with h4. We can actually do that. but the top priority is to eliminate his strongest piece. And he correctly strikes in the center with c5. Now, what should we do here, ladies and gentlemen? Since we are trading his bishop, we can now play the move what? Which would be not good if we weren't trading his bishop. Because this move that I'm about to play, it would be a bad move in theory because it actually opens up his bishop. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the move d5, right? We open the diagonal for him, but because we trade his bishop, this move is fine. But let's not take his bishop yet. We can try to squeeze as much juice out of this as possible. What should we do instead of taking the bishop? A very typical attacking idea. A very typical attacking idea. We need to open up the h-file because that's where we're going to checkmate him. Now, eDoc suggests a4 to stop b5, but let me tell you something. We don't even have to stop b5. We can go straight for his throat with h4. Okay? Because we are very close to just going h5 and opening up the h-file and checkmating him. Watch what happens. h5. He's probably going to go b4. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. We are going to now take his bishop on g7. Watch very carefully. I will explain this after the game. If you would have played bc, kind of mull over in your head what you would have done, but I'll show that. And guess what we do now? What do you guys think? Should we move the knight away? Hint, no. We can actually sack it. Sacrifice the knight. We can take g6. Hopefully he takes the knight so I can demonstrate. No, he doesn't. He trusts us. Now we put the queen on h6. And we've got a beautiful battery here. He's hanging by a single thread. Okay? Now, our knight is being attacked. We need to move the knight. We think about, well, where do we move the knight? Well, one good idea is to maneuver this knight to a nice little central square on e3. I think knight e2 would be worse because that would block in the bishop. So let's get this knight around to e3. This guy is good. He's defending well. Now, take a look at this knight and look at it very carefully. Where should this knight go? Where should this knight go? Ultimately, it's a two-move maneuver. Think about its destination. Don't think about the next move. Think about the destination. g5. Look at this beautiful square. It's exerting pressure on h7 and it's attacking e6. So let's go knight h3, knight g5, or knight h3, knight f4. But knight g5 is even better than knight f4. It's more stable there. Let's go. Now he has to go knight e5, correct. This knight is annoying. Can we... Well, first of all, let's castle. Let's complete our development. Let's not commit to anything quite yet. And let's come up with a plan of action. Now, the plan that I propose, first of all, we have not... Okay, so he goes knight f7. We need to trade, which is not desirable, but unfortunately it's a necessity and it's okay. I have an idea. Now, where should we put the bishop? Thank you, K for men. Where should we put the bishop? We should put it on a weak square. We should put it on c4 because it x-rays the queen and the king. And you guys might be looking at this and saying, well, wait a second. His pawn's on d6. What are you talking about? This bishop looks stupid. Remember potential energy, kinetic and potential energy. This bishop has a ton of potential energy if this diagonal opens up, and we can actually make that happen eventually by playing e5. Now, first of all, he wants to go queen f4 potentially and trade queens, although that's actually not a threat, as I'll show you guys. But let's, first of all, let's try to triple pieces on the h-file. Let's go rook h4, then double on the h-file, and then we'll potentially have a triple situation on the h-file. Okay? Now let's see what he does. Now, secondary idea is for us to go f4 and e5. As I mentioned earlier, we want to open up this this diagonal. I'm actually going to go, this guy is good. I'm actually going to go e5. Yeah, let's go e5. No, this guy is playing extremely well. And I'm cutting it close on the clock, so let me focus for a second. We're still doing fine. I'm going to explain a couple of things after the game. Let's go d6, exposing his king. And now we're going to go knight. Well, actually, no, let me think. Yeah, knight g4. Let me focus for a second, guys. Yeah, this guy is surprising me with his play. Quite a bit, actually. But we'll be fine. Don't try this at home, though. Knight d7. Bishop e6 check. Okay. Knight f8. We're up a piece. We're attacking the knight, and we want to go d7 and promote the pawn. Don't worry. Everything's under control. Everything is under perfect control. Yeah, this guy is good, but you know, I'll explain the last couple of moves in a moment. Okay, so yeah, I can win this even with 10 seconds. Don't worry. Trust me. I've been doing this for a very long time. So why was rook takes f4 a bad idea here, guys? Why is rook takes f4 a bad idea here? Somebody tell me. I won't make a move until somebody tells me. Knight e2. Yeah. Now watch. You see? It's all going to be fine. Now, that was a very tricky game. This guy was good. This guy was very, very good. Now, let's unpack some of these moments. First and foremost, a lot of people wonder why f3 is better than h3. Could somebody explain to me why, when you're trying to prepare queen d2 and stopping knight g4, what additional benefit does f3 have over h3? What additional benefit does this move have over this move? Compare them. Sorry. Thank you so much. Let's get some hype going. Hippopotami, thank you for the prime. I think we're over 3,500. Supporting the center, right? The more things you get done with a move, the better. So this supports the center. Now, so boom, boom, boom. We trade the bishops. We go d5 to close up the center. We could have gone a4 here to stop b5. Maybe I should have. Because he kind of got a lot of counterplay. Now, first of all, could somebody tell me what happens after knight takes h5? The board might be frozen. Yes, sorry. Could somebody tell me what happens after knight takes h5 here? Could somebody tell me what happens after knight takes h5? Guys, it's unfrozen, please. Rook takes h5, queen g5, and this is as old as time, and queen takes g7, checkmate is unstoppable. Now, if he tries to play bc preemptively, then we go queen to h6, right? The queen occupies the square, just vacated by the bishop, and now we have a huge attack. This is not worrisome because of rook to b1. Okay? Now here, what would have happened if b takes c3? Some really interesting complications arise because of this. Could somebody tell me the next move? Queen h6. Now, if king h8, then we go g7, we fork the king of the rook. So king to g8 is forced. White to play. Trick question. Do not make the tempting move. This is not checkmate. This is not easy to win, but I believe it is winning. We do not want to go g takes h7 check, because the king is going to use this pawn as an umbrella, and it's going to be perfectly safe. So we want to actually go g7, and now we have this position. Now we need to think logically. What does that mean? That means that the queen wants to deliver checkmate on h7, but it cannot because there's a knight on f6. So the immediate next question has to be two questions. Number one, can I get rid of this knight? Number two, can I apply additional pressure on the h7 square? Now be very careful about how you go about doing that, right? f4, e5 is not correct because the e5 square is defended very well by the other knight. But here's what we can try to do. First of all, and this is what I would have done, we can bring the knight to g5 and use that knight to capture h7. Bishop d3 would be another very sneaky idea, but he could put his knight on e5 to stop you from going e5. Knight h3, knight g5 is unstoppable. Black simply, I think, has no way to stop knight g5, although maybe it's not that simple. Okay? So bishop d3, he has knight e5, right? Does that make sense? You can't go e5. Now g4 is possible, but here's the problem, guys, with g4, g5. The problem is that, let's make a random move. Even if you do this, and you play g takes f6, Black's other knight replaces the first one. So I get it, you want a piece, but you're not going into this for a piece, you're going into this for checkmate. And so here, you have the same problem over again, right? You don't just want to get rid of the knight, you want to get rid of the knight and the other knight as well. You want to do it in a way that doesn't allow Black to get the other knight to f6. Okay? Now, if you go bishop d3, knight e5, f4, then knight takes d3 check, and you get a problem, which is that if e5, well, now Black can go bishop to f5 and use the bishop to defend the pawn. So bad stuff just kind of happens here. So, yeah, now you can do it, Yazazi, but we've made random moves for Black. Black is not going to make random moves, trust me. Black is going to play cb, and he's going to go queen a5 and queen takes a2. You have like one move to do something, so that's why I think knight h3 is super important. You have to act with a sense of urgency. All right. So here we got the knight around to a good square. Then we got the other knight to a good square. Then we went bishop c4, rook h4 to stop queen f4. We tripled. We went f4, e5, opening up the bishop. And now I actually had a beautiful move. Knight g4, I just checked, is kind of inaccurate. We had the move f5, just crunching through his position. He cannot take because of the pin, and he cannot take the other way because the knight falls. Instead, I went knight g4 in order to get my knight to e5. White is still better here, and the pressure is immense, even though we're in an endgame, and even though I'm up a couple of pawns, I'm down a couple of pawns, it doesn't matter, because look at how active my pieces are. And guess what piece wins the game? It's the bishop. The bishop that looked terrible wins the game because it has so much potential energy. Okay? Didn't we have knight e6 for a fork before? At which point, I'm not sure when you're referring to. Well, knight e6 here, remember his bishop can now take the knight simply. Okay, so I actually realized something, and I made a mistake, which is that queen f4 is not actually a threat. Why? Can somebody tell me why this is not actually a threat? Rook takes h5. Exactly, very good. And the rook simultaneously defends our queen. Boom, boom. And the game is over. Okay. Does 250. Thank you so much. Does this make sense? Very good. Any questions? Last speedrun game. Yeah. Okay, last game. We are over 1700. Am I eating okay? Oh, yes. 1800 again. Here we go. You see, guys, we're playing good people, but it's not... Okay, he aborted. I guess we'll go again. 1712, exactly the same rating from Russia. Of course. Oh, then you take the queen, by the way. Okay, so French. Now in the French, I'm going to go knight to c3, which is the main line. He takes, that's what Andrew Tang plays. And he goes knight f6, we take the knight. Now, we develop very naturally here. Knight to f3, white is better in this line. And now we have a very tricky move. Bishop d3. Let's see. Oh, and he missed it. We can win the game on the spot with what move, ladies and gentlemen? Drum roll, please. That's why you don't bring your queen out before every other piece. That's exactly why you don't bring your queen out in the opening. That's why that piece of advice exists. Mr. Queen, Mrs. Queen, where do you go? Ms. Milady, where are you gonna go? Milady. Here? Oh, wait a second. I think there's a knight guarding this. Here. Oh, wait, no. Huh. Well, queen can't be trapped on move 8, can it? That's it. Game over. He had to play h6 here. That's theory. The theory is the move h6, stopping bishop g5. Okay, he's probably fuming right now. Yeah, this is actually very typical. So, okay, not bad. I was like 160. Okay, he resigned. So perfect time now for the last speedrun game. Okay, BYCB. Let's play another Sicilian. And he plays the wing gambit. So the wing gambit is something that Sicilian players often fear. The idea of the wing gambit, okay, bishop c4 is bad. The move is a3 there. Now, how should we go about playing this position? Well, what do you guys think we should do? Yeah, we should develop, but how should we develop? We have a pretty cool idea here, which is to go knight f6. And this invites e5, but we have a very sexy move here. Can somebody find it? A very sexy response. And this response always exists when there is a bishop on c4. Boom, goes the dynamite d5. Now you guys might look at them and say, but wait a second. He can go bishop b5 check. He probably is going to do that in like the next 5 seconds. Okay, no, he took. But by the way, in that event of that, we could have gone bishop to d7, counter-attacking his bishop. And if he takes, we play knight f takes d7, moving that same knight which is being attacked to take back the bishop. Here, he's just in huge trouble. Look at our monster pawns. We're up a pawn. He's got nothing developed. I mean, this is just horrible for white. F takes e7, we're going to take back with the bishop, prioritizing our development over a meaningless check. Okay. Well, actually, there's a couple things we could do, right? He wants to take this pawn. So what do you guys think that we should do? Can we maybe defend this pawn and make a development move at the same time? It looks a little bit awkward, but it's a really strong move. Malcolm Tucker, you are on fire, my friend. Bishop e6. Bishop e6, defending the pawn and developing our bishop. Now, you guys might be looking at this and saying, but wait, this move bishop e6, you usually tell me not to play it because it obstructs the development of this bishop. But this is an exception because obviously he's going to have to do something with this pawn, and that's going to solve for us the problem of this bishop. He decides to simply give that pawn away, which opens up our bishop. Look how beautifully we've developed our pieces. Curly Johnny, thank you for the 3 months. Glad to hear that, my friend. Glad to hear that. Okay, c3. Well, we can take, but let's go a5 to keep our beautiful pawn mass alive here. And then we're going to complete our development. And castle, and we're going to win easily. His bishop is also completely stuck because of this nice little pawn mass that we've got. You're watching from San Fran, great. Okay, knight c6, stopping knight d4 also. Bishop c5, getting the bishop on the most active square. These moves I'm not really explaining because they're simple. And, yeah. Okay, so this is winning. Yeah, this is interesting. No, the people are uneven. I mean, we're going to castle. And let's see if I can play some regular bullet after that to finish. No, actually, there's nobody online. Maybe some blitz, regular blitz. I'm not that sleepy for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I'm tired, but I feel like going. I'm feeling pumped for the match. Okay. So let's unpack the situation. We have a way to trade queens here. And the simplest thing here would be to trade queens because we're up several pawns and we've got everything developed. And I want to show you guys how to win in an endgame. How can we trade queens? There's two possible moves here. Mr. Gambini, are you on drugs? Drugs? No, I don't take drugs. Queen d5 or queen d3 is exactly right. Yeah, I'm on adrenaline right now. I am high on life, as they say. Queen d3 is correct. And, you know, we're up 2 pawns. It makes sense to trade queens, and then we're going to get a beautiful pawn on d3. Yeah, queen d5 was just as good. Both moves were perfectly fine. They were alternatives. All roads lead to Rome here. Okay, so he takes it. We're going to take. And hopefully now I can show you guys endgame technique. So he activates his knight. So how should we go about playing this position? What should we do? Well, first of all, we need to identify where the sort of pressure points are, right? What's going on here? What is the battle revolving around? You guys see, right, that the rooks are in a standoff. So does it make sense that if we can gain control of the A file, then that would signify progress toward eventually infiltrating? Does that part make sense? Okay. Now, then we ask ourselves the next question, right? Which is, how do we get control of the A file? And the idea of knight before knight c2 comes to mind. Okay. Knight before knight c2 would dislodge his rook from a1, and it would give us control of the A file. But there is a problem. And here's the problem. If we go knight b4, he can beat us to the punch with what move? How can he beat us to the punch if we go knight b4? He can go knight c7 first. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go bishop b6, dropping back the bishop, and preparing to go knight b4, knight c2. Prophylactic move, looks mysterious, but hopefully I've guided you guys through each sort of step of my thinking process here. Knight d6. Okay, that's okay. He attacks our pawn on b7, but this is a completely innocuous move for many different reasons. And I'm actually going to do something that looks crazy. I'm going to sacrifice this pawn. Why am I doing that? Because I believe that the A file is so important that it's worth sacrificing a pawn over it. Because once we get a rook to the second rank, and this speaks to perhaps the most important, he doesn't even take it. See how this worked? Piece activity in the endgame is incredibly important. Sometimes even more important than material. Okay, you want to make sure your pieces are active. All right, so now we want to centralize our bishop. But first, we want to reap the rewards of what we just did. So let's go rook a2. Okay, I did not blunder that. The knight defends the bishop. The bishop is what we call a type 2 undefended piece. What can we do? Beautiful, guys. Beautiful. Bishop c4. That's it. The game is over. He's going to lose his knight, and everything is going to collapse. And this is a direct product of us getting the rook to a2. We won the battle over the A file, and therefore we won the game. Actually, ooh, no we didn't. Not yet. Just kidding. Rook a8. We don't need to attack the bishop. His knight is permanently pinned. He has no way to save it. He thought he could catch me like that. He is wrong. Boom. And we are up in exchange. And the rest is very simple. Let's bring the bishop back to c4. Let's now identify the weaknesses in his position and work toward attacking them. The d4 pawn is the weakness that we can attack. Our passed pawn, and we can take it. Now, as I've explained many times, how do you win an endgame like this in the most efficient way? You identify where the passed pawn is, and you push it. But here, he just gives us a free knight. Now, we couldn't have taken it immediately because bishop takes d4, and he resigns. So, very simple. d5 was the key move. If bishop b5 check, we would have gone bishop d7, takes, then e6. We would be up a pawn with a beautiful pawn chain. So this was all very straightforward. Very straightforward. Queen d5 here would be perfectly good as well. They would be alternatives, although it's a little bit less forcing. Maybe he can drop his queen back here. But queen d3 is quite forcing because it also attacks the knight, right? And here, the move bishop e6, I want you guys to pay attention to this move, right? Step-by-step logic. Where is the battle revolving around? Well, the a file, right? That's the only standoff that we have. We want to gain control of the a file. How do we do that? By dislodging his rook. How do we dislodge his rook? Well, the only possible way is to get the knight to c2. Okay, what's stopping us? Well, he can do the exact same thing from his end and gain control of the a file. So can we stop knight c7 first and then go knight b4, knight c2? That's exactly what we did. Rook a2. See? That's how we won the game.